I am Anthony from HNE, and today we're going to look at the history of one of Pokemon's product lines. Started by a man who used to collect bugs as a child, Pokemon has since grown into one of the world's largest entertainment franchises. Almost as soon as the first Pokemon video games released in Japan on the Nintendo Game Boy in 1996, Pokemania exploded onto television, trading cards, and movies. For purposes of simplicity, we will be focusing on products released in North America.
Who's that Pokemon?
Generation 1, Nintendo Game Boy. In 1998, Pokemon Red and Blue landed on North American shores and introduced the Kanto region. The game featured wired connectivity between versions for the purposes of trading the over 150 collectible creatures and introduced future Pokemon mascot Pikachu.
150 Pokemon. On your Game Boy, that's where. Pokemon for Game Boy is here. With both packs, you can catch them all. Games and systems sold separately.
In 1999, Pokemon Yellow featured Pikachu and a modified Red and Blue story utilizing the characters from the popular Pokemon anime series. Generation 2, Nintendo Game Boy Color. In 2000, Pokemon Silver and Gold introduced the Johto region and an additional 100 Pokemon. The games also included the ability to visit the Kanto region and collect the remaining original 150 Pokemon once completing the Johto story. These games were also the first to be in color. In 2001, Pokemon Crystal granted players the choice of playing as a boy or girl. It also included an updated story from Silver and Gold focusing on Suicune. Generation 3, Nintendo Game Boy Advance. In 2003, Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire introduced players to the Hoenn region and 135 new Pokemon. There were also features added for use with the e-reader. Released in 2004, Fire Red and Leaf Green reintroduced players to the Kanto region, but this time in color and with features updated to match Ruby and Sapphire's. Also packaged with the games came a wireless adapter, eliminating the need for using cables to conduct trades. In 2005, Pokemon Emerald is an update of Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire. However, the e-reader functionality was removed. It also included an updated story focusing on Rayquaza. Generation 4, Nintendo DS. In 2007, Pokemon Diamond and Pearl introduced players to the Sinnoh region and 100 new Pokemon. Being based upon the Nintendo DS, players could now trade via the built-in Nintendo Wi-Fi connection feature. In 2009, Pokemon Platinum is an update of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. It also included an updated story focusing on Rayquaza. In 2010, Heart Gold and Soul Silver reintroduced players to the Johto region, but updated with features to match Diamond and Pearls. Also packaged with the game came a Pokewalker. It encouraged players to transfer a Pokemon to the Pokewalker so that as they move, the Pokemon would earn perks. Generation 5 Nintendo DS. In 2011, Pokemon Black and White introduced players to the Unova region and 156 new Pokemon. Utilizing the Nintendo Wi-Fi connection, players could now participate in the Pokemon Global Link and the Pokemon Dream World website. In 2012, Pokemon Black 2 and White 2 is an update of Pokemon Black and White. It also included an updated story that occurs 2 years after the original and focuses on alternate forms of Kyurem. Generation 6 Nintendo 3DS. In 2013, Pokemon X and Y introduced players to the Kalos region and 72 new Pokemon. New to Pokemon was a transformation mechanic known as Mega Evolution. Specific Pokemon could be paired with a special stone that enabled temporary transformations into a more powerful form in battle. Pokemon X and Y were also the first games to utilize the Pokemon Bank and Pokemon Transporter for Pokemon storage. In 2014, Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire reintroduced players to the Hoenn region, but updated with features to match X and Ys. It also introduced additional Mega Evolutions and new Primal Evolutions. Generation 7 Nintendo 3DS. In 2016, Pokemon Sun and Moon introduced players to the Alola region and 81 new Pokemon. New to Pokemon was the inclusion of Z-Moves, a powerful one-time use move in battle that could potentially turn the tides. There was also the inclusion of Ultra Beasts, a subtype of Pokemon similar to Mythical and Legendary. In 2017, Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon is an update of Pokemon Sun and Moon that occurs in an alternate timeline. It also focuses on alternate forms of Necrozma and a post-story featuring Team Rainbow Rocket. Generation 7 Nintendo Switch. In 2018, Pokemon's Let's Go Pikachu and Pokemon Let's Go Eevee reintroduced players to the Kanto region, but this time ported to the Nintendo Switch and utilizing play mechanics similar to Pokemon Go. Generation 8 Nintendo Switch. In 2019, Pokemon Sword and Shield introduced players to the Galar region and over 80 new Pokemon. It is the first set of games in the series to have downloadable content that both adds to its Pokemon count and opens new areas to explore. Also, the battle mechanics of Dynamaxing and Gigantamaxing are introduced that enable Pokemon to grow in size and use more powerful moves for 3 turns. With Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, Pokemon Sword and Shield are able to utilize Pokemon Home for Pokemon storage. In 2021, Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl reintroduced players to the Sinnoh region, but updated to include features found in Pokemon Sword and Shield while still maintaining its original top-down display. In 2022, Pokemon Arceus is the first game to exclusively explore the story of a specific Pokemon. It featured open-world exploration and real-time battle mechanics.
Pikachu!
Pokemon has been an icon in popular culture for over 25 years with no sign of slowing down. With the establishment of now classic characters and regular product releases, there is still plenty of room for growth in the franchise first established in 1996. Let us hope that Pokemon will continue to live on forever. If you have any comments or questions, please post them. Also remember to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I am Anthony from HNE, and today we're going to look at the history of one of Pokemon's product lines. Started by a man who used to collect bugs as a child, Pokemon has since grown into one of the world's largest entertainment franchises. Almost as soon as the first Pokemon video games released in Japan on the Nintendo Game Boy in 1996, Pokemania exploded onto television, trading cards, and movies. For purposes of simplicity, we will be focusing on products released in North America.
Who's that Pokemon?
Pokemon Pinball. In 1999, Pokemon Pinball was released on the Nintendo Game Boy Color. A simulated pinball game, players would work themselves through a number of themed tables to unlock various Pokemon. Other related games included Pokemon Pinball, Ruby, and Sapphire. Pokemon Snap. In 1999, Pokemon Snap was released on the Nintendo 64. Featuring anime character Todd Snap, players follow a predetermined route and snap photos of Pokemon in their natural habitat. Achievements are unlocked as players improve their photo skills. Other related games included New Pokemon Snap. Super Smash Bros. In 1999, Super Smash Bros. Was released on the Nintendo 64. Super Smash Bros. Was a 2D fighting party game that featured a number of classic and modern video game characters. Later versions included downloadable content and online play. Other related games included Super Smash Bros. Melee, Brawl, Wii U, 3DS, and Ultimate. Pokemon Stadium and Revolution. In 2000, Pokemon Stadium was released on the Nintendo 64. Players could transfer their Pokemon from their handheld games to battle them in 3D. If players did not have any of the handheld games, they could rent pre-made Pokemon teams. Other related games included Pokemon Stadium 2 and Pokemon Battle Revolution. Pikachu games. In 2000, Hey You Pikachu was released on the Nintendo 64. Using a microphone, players could use their voice to issue commands to Pokemon in an effort to complete minigames. Forgoing the voice function, other related games included Pokemon Channel, PokePark Wii Pikachu's Adventure, and PokePark 2 Wonders Beyond. In 2003, Detective Pikachu was released on the Nintendo 3DS and featured a story where players solved mysteries as Pikachu.
Detective Pikachu.
Looks completely abandoned.
Yep.
Pokemon Trading Card Game. In 2000, the Pokemon Trading Card Game was released on the Nintendo Game Boy Color. Featuring trading cards that are part of the real-world trading card game, it introduced players to the game's rules and a story in which they could collect additional in-game trading cards. Other related games included Pokemon, the trading card game Play It 2, Pokemon the Trading Card Game Online, and Pokemon the Trading Card Game Card Decks. Pokemon Puzzle Games. In 2000, Pokemon Puzzle League was released on the Nintendo 64. Based upon Tetris Attack, players match colored blocks to win badges to compete in the Pokemon League Championship. Other related games included Pokemon Puzzle Challenge, Pokemon Picross, Pokemon Shuffle, Pokemon Trozzy, and Pokemon Battle Trozzy. Pokemon Coliseum. In 2004, Pokemon Coliseum was released on the Nintendo GameCube. Connecting the handheld games, players could use their Pokemon in battles. In 2005, Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness released on the Nintendo GameCube, adding a deep role-playing story. Pokemon Storage. In 2004, Pokemon Box, Ruby, and Sapphire was released on the Nintendo GameCube. Players could store their handheld Pokemon on the console as well as play their handheld games on the television. Other related games included My Pokemon Ranch, Pokemon Dream World, Pokemon Dream Radar, Pokemon Bank, and Pokemon Transporter. Other Pokemon games. In 2004, Pokemon Dash was released on the Nintendo DS. Players used the touchscreen to manipulate Pokemon in a number of ways to compete against other Pokemon in various game modes. In 2014, Pokemon Art Academy was released on the Nintendo 3DS. Art Academy teaches players how to color and draw various Pokemon to unlock even more artistic material. Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. In 2006, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Red Rescue Team was released on the Nintendo Game Boy Advance. Playing as a human turned Pokemon, to learn how they became a Pokemon, players must complete missions for other Pokemon that occur in various dungeons. Other related games included Blue Rescue Team, Explorers of Time, Explorers of Darkness, Explorers of Sky, Gates to Infinity, Super Mystery Dungeon, and Rescue Team DX. Pokemon Ranger. In 2006, Pokemon Ranger was released on the Nintendo DS. As a park ranger, players must enlist Pokemon to help them protect other Pokemon, as well as solving crimes, resolving ecological issues, and helping citizens. Other related games include Shadows of Almia and Guardian Signs. Pokemon Rumble. In 2009, Pokemon Rumble was released on the Nintendo Wii. Featuring blocky toy Pokemon, players could catch and train the Pokemon in real time while racing to befriend as many Pokemon as possible. In 2013, Pokemon Rumble U was released on the Nintendo Wii U. Players could now use real-world Pokemon Rumble toys to import them into the game using near-field communication. The toys were the predecessor to the Nintendo Amiibo. Other related games included Pokemon Rumble Blast, Pokemon Rumble World, and Pokemon Rumble Rush. Pokemon Pokédex 3D. In 2011, Pokédex 3D was released on the Nintendo 3DS. Players could view 3D Pokédex versions of their Pokemon, as well as use augmented reality to photograph them in the real world. Related games included Pokédex 3D Pro and Pokédex for iOS.
You now have the ability to view over 640 Pokemon in beautiful 3D graphics. See and hear them come alive.
Other Pokemon RPGs. In 2012, Pokemon Conquest was released on the Nintendo DS. A crossover role-playing strategy game with Nobunaga's ambition. Players engage in an extensive story where winning battles unlock Pokemon and characters in hopes of recruiting them to their side. In 2018, Pokemon Quest was released on the Nintendo Switch. Similar to Minecraft in nature, players defeat wild Pokemon to collect them and manipulate the environment to unlock various types of loot. Pokemon mobile games. In 2014, the Pokemon Company began to develop and publish mobile and online games. The popularity of internet-connected devices could no longer be ignored by game companies. They had to adapt to retain awareness and wide acceptance among consumers. Related games included Camp Pokemon, Pokemon Duel, Pokemon Go, Pokemon Magikarp Jump, Pokemon Playhouse, Pokemon Tower Battle, Pokemon Cafe Mix, and Pokemon Unite. Pokken Tournament. In 2016, Pokken Tournament was released on the Nintendo Wii U. The first 3D, real-time Pokemon fighting game based upon Tekken. Players control Pokemon to compete in a number of leagues while unlocking item upgrades. Other related games included Pokken Tournament DX.
Power through the air with huge wings and blow fire as Charizard. Sensors and wield their power.
Pokemon Masters. In 2019, Pokemon Masters was released on mobile devices. Players were tasked with controlling a synced pair of Pokemon and its trainer to earn badges in battles while preventing Team Break from stealing strong Pokemon. Primarily utilizing multi-battles, the player battles in real time where the speed of issuing commands could mean the difference between victory or defeat. Other related games include Pokemon Masters EX. Pokemon Home. In 2020, Pokemon Home was released on the Nintendo Switch. Just like with Pokemon Box and its related games, players could store their Pokemon outside of their console, but this time via online servers. They could also transfer Pokemon from Pokemon Bank and Pokemon Go to Pokemon Home. In addition, box management and the trading of Pokemon is conducted via the Pokemon Home mobile application, while obtaining special event Pokemon was done using the Pokemon Pass mobile application. Pokemon Health. In 2020, Pokemon Smile was released on mobile devices. Part of a series of health-minded games, Pokemon Smile encouraged players to brush their teeth based upon on-screen instructions. Once brushing had been completed, players had a chance to catch a Pokemon. Other related games included Pokemon Sleep.
But it doesn't have to be when you've got Pokemon. With Pokemon Smile, turn toothbrushing time into a fun time.
It's Pikachu!
Pokemon has been an icon in popular culture for over 25 years with no sign of slowing down. With the establishment of now classic characters and regular product releases, there is still plenty of room for growth in the franchise first established in 1996. Let us hope that Pokemon will continue to live on forever. If you have any comments or questions, please post them. Also remember to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Less than 50% of viewers have subscribed to this channel. Please consider clicking that subscribe button to get us one step closer to monetization. Thank you for watching. I am Anthony from HNE, and today we're going to take a look at a part of the history of Sonic the Hedgehog. Begun as a video game on the Sega Genesis in 1991, Sonic the Hedgehog was the story of a blue super fast hedgehog who fought against a villain known as Eggman. Sonic gained a number of friends and changed the minds of a number of enemies who joined him in his resistance against the Eggman Empire. Over the years, the character roster has expanded and continues to be one of the top entertainment properties in the world. For purposes of simplicity, we will be focusing on products released in North America. In 1991, Sonic the Hedgehog was released on the Sega Game Gear, Sega Genesis, and Sega Master System. Created in response to the popularity of the Super Mario Bros., Sega wanted a mascot that separated them from Nintendo as being the game console for cool people. While a two-dimensional side-scrolling platforming game like Mario, Sonic ran fast from the left to the right side of the screen in a display that told players that Sega's games were faster than Nintendo's. In 1992, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 was released on the Sega Game Gear, Sega Genesis, and Sega Master System. Continuing the storyline from the previous game that involved ending Robotnik's plans, this time Sonic had a spin dash that allowed him to reach top speed while in a crouched position. In addition, a sidekick character named Miles Tails Prower was introduced alongside a two-player game mode. Collecting all of the Chaos Emeralds allowed Sonic to become Super Sonic. In 1993, Sonic CD was released on the Sega CD, an accessory that attached to the Sega Genesis. A two-dimensional platforming side-scrolling game, Sonic had to save a small planet from being taken over by Robotnik. This game introduced the characters of Metal Sonic and Amy Rose, as well as the concept of time travel. Each stage had 3 timelines where Sonic must complete specific tasks in hope of ending up with the ideal story conclusion. Also in 1993, Sonic the Hedgehog Chaos was released on the Sega Game Gear and Sega Master System. A two-dimensional side-scrolling platforming game, Sonic and Tails must prevent Robotnik from harnessing the power of the Chaos Emeralds to create a new type of weapon. In 1994, Sonic the Hedgehog 3 was released on the Sega Genesis. Continuing the storyline from Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Robotnik had come up with another scheme to gain power. This time he had tricked Knuckles the Echidna into handing over the Master Chaos Emerald so that he could power the Death Egg. Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails are selectable characters, each with their own storylines and adjusted stage layouts. Collecting all of the Chaos Emeralds allowed Sonic to become Super Sonic and Knuckles to become Super Knuckles. Also in 1994, Sonic & Knuckles was released on the Sega Genesis. Continuing the storyline from the previous game, Knuckles realized his mistake and assisted Sonic and Tails with defeating Robotnik. Utilizing lock-on technology, players with both Sonic & Knuckles and Sonic the Hedgehog 3 could connect the games to combine the storylines into a longer game. While collecting all of the Chaos Emeralds allowed Sonic and Knuckles to have super forms, collecting all of the Super Chaos Emeralds allowed Sonic and Knuckles to have hyper forms while allowing Tails to have a super form. Also in 1994, Sonic the Hedgehog Triple Trouble was released on the Sega Game Gear. A two-dimensional side-scrolling platform game, this game is the direct sequel to Sonic the Hedgehog Chaos. This time, Sonic and Tails must stop Knuckles the Echidna and Knack the Weasel from assisting Robotnik in his plans for world domination. In 1995, Knuckles Chaotix was released on the Sega 32X, an accessory that attached to the Sega Genesis. A two-dimensional side-scrolling platform game, players control two characters tethered together as a means of solving puzzles and mixing up the typical battle mechanics. While Sonic is nowhere to be seen, the characters are from the same universe and are led by Knuckles. The plot revolved around Robotnik and Metal Sonic gathering the 6 Chaos Rings.
Also in 1995, Sonic Drift 2 was released on the Sega Game Gear. A kart racing game, Sonic and his crew joined together to race against Robotnik and his badniks. Similar in look and feel to the Japanese exclusive Sonic Drift, this game adds Knuckles the Echidna, Fang the Sniper, and Metal Sonic as playable characters.
In 1996, Sonic 3D Blast was released on the Sega Genesis and Sega Saturn. A three-dimensional game with an isometric perspective, Sonic ventured to free Fleekies captured by Robotnik in his search for the Chaos Emeralds. Robotnik had learned that large rings would allow individuals to travel between alternate dimensions. While the controls from the previous games were preserved, players now have to consider movement in an additional dimension. In 1997, Sonic Jam was released on the Sega Saturn. Featuring a three-dimensional hub world, the game included ports of the two-dimensional side-scrolling platformers Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Sonic the Hedgehog 3, and Sonic and Knuckles from the Sega Genesis. Additional features included difficulty modes, spin dashing in Sonic 1, the ability to play special stages, and time attack modes.
Also in 1997, Sonic R was released on the Sega Saturn and later on the Nintendo GameCube, Sony PlayStation 2, and PC. However, since not technically part of the main Sonic franchise, this racing series will not be covered beyond this entry. Here is a list of other release games in this series.
In 1999, Sonic Adventure was released on the Sega Dreamcast. A director's cut version would be released in 2003 on the Nintendo GameCube and PC. Now in a fully three-dimensional third-person action-adventure game, Robotnik ventures to release an entity known as Chaos upon the world after freeing it by destroying the Master Chaos Emerald. By feeding it the Chaos Emeralds, Chaos could obtain his perfect form. The game also introduced creatures known as Chow, which were essentially virtual pets. In 2002, Sonic Adventure 2 was released on the Sega Dreamcast. A battle version would also be released in 2002 on the Nintendo GameCube, which included the original game's downloadable content and the ability to trade Chow with the Sonic Advance and Sonic Advance 2 games on the Nintendo Game Boy Advance. In an attempt to revive the Ultimate Weapon, Robotnik, who is now known as Eggman, finds research from his grandfather and wakes Shadow the Hedgehog. Suffering amnesia, Shadow initially assisted Robotnik with his plans, but soon realized his mistake and joined Sonic in the battle where they both obtained super forms. Also in 2002, Sonic Advance was released on the Nintendo Game Boy Advance. Returning Sonic to his two-dimensional side-scrolling platforming roots, the story sees Sonic and friends take on Eggman to stop another plot for world domination. Sonic was fast and had an insta-shield, Tails could fly and swim, Knuckles could climb and glide, and Amy had a powerful hammer attack. There was also an ability to trade Chow with Sonic Adventure 2 Battle on the Nintendo GameCube. In 2003, the Sonic Mega Collection was released on the Nintendo GameCube, and then a Plus version was released on the Microsoft Xbox, Sony PlayStation 2, and PC. A compilation of at least 12 Sonic-adjacent games, including the original Sega Genesis trilogy, players could unlock additional games by meeting specific requirements. The games ranged from 8 to 16-bit console and handheld versions. Also in 2003, Sonic Advance 2 was released on the Nintendo Game Boy Advance. Continuing the storyline from the previous game, this time the goal is to collect all of the Chaos Emeralds. Cream the Rabbit joins the series as a new playable character who could fly using her ears. There was also an ability to trade Chao with Sonic Adventure 2 Battle on the Nintendo GameCube. In 2004, Sonic Heroes was released on the Microsoft Xbox, Nintendo GameCube, and Sony PlayStation 2. Similar to the concept behind Knuckles Chaotix, the player is tasked with managing 3 tethered characters that each have specific types: speed, flight, and power. Otherwise, it is a 3-dimensional third-person action-adventure game that continued along the storylines of the Sonic Adventure games. Also in 2004, Sonic Advance 3 was released on the Nintendo Game Boy Advance. Continuing the storyline from Sonic Advance 2, this time the goal is to stop Eggman from using the Chaos Emeralds to perform Chaos Control. Eggman has a robot sidekick named Gemerald, who used the Chaos Emeralds to achieve a super form. Super Sonic defeated Gemerald, and Tails repaired him to become Cream's guardian. In 2005, Shadow the Hedgehog was released on the Microsoft Xbox, Nintendo GameCube, and Sony PlayStation 2. A 3-dimensional third-person action-adventure game, Shadow the Hedgehog is portrayed as a grittier Sonic game. Shadow had multiple storylines that ranged from evil to good, depending upon how he completed each act's objectives. In addition to the use of weapons, Shadow was assisted by a number of Sonic characters. Also in 2005, Sonic Rush was released on the Nintendo DS. It is a 2.5-dimensional side-scrolling platformer that utilizes both screens of the handheld device. Introducing Blaze the Cat, players must select either her or Sonic to battle across a number of zones to defeat Eggman and his doppelganger, Eggman Nega. The special stages are similar to those found in Sonic the Hedgehog 2 on the Sega Genesis. In 2006, Sonic the Hedgehog was released on the Microsoft Xbox 360 and Sony PlayStation 3. A 3-dimensional third-person action-adventure game, Sonic and his friends must save a kingdom from Eggman, who wished to unleash a destructive power in an effort to take over the world. Silver the Hedgehog and Blaze the Cat travel across the multiverse in time to hinder and then assist Sonic and his friends. Also in 2006, Sonic Riders was released on the Microsoft Xbox, Nintendo GameCube, Sony PlayStation 2, and PC. However, since not technically part of the main Sonic franchise, this racing series will not be covered beyond this entry. Here is a list of other release games in this series. In 2007, Sonic Rush Adventure was released on the Nintendo DS. A 2.5-dimensional side-scrolling platformer, Sonic and Blaze must once again team up to defeat Eggman and Eggman Nega. Initially, players travel a world map and play mini-games in one of 4 ships. With the help of Tails, additional ships could be built from parts collected in each zone. Also in 2007, Sonic and the Secret Rings was released on the Nintendo Wii. A 3-dimensional action platforming game, Sonic must run to stop an evil genie named Eraser Djinn from erasing the stories of the Arabian Nights book. While not technically a role-playing game, as Sonic progresses, he unlocks skills to assist him in his adventure. In 2008, Sonic Unleashed was released on the Microsoft Xbox 360, Nintendo Wii, Sony PlayStation 2, and Sony PlayStation 3. A three-dimensional third-person action-adventure game with occasional two-dimensional side-scrolling platforming, Sonic was cursed with a werehog transformation after attempting to repair the damage caused by Eggman when he released an ancient evil known as Dark Gaia. During the night stages, Sonic transformation was mandatory. As a werehog, Sonic was slower, but much more powerful and engaged in waves of combat against badniks. Also in 2008, Sonic Chronicles The Dark Brotherhood was released on the Nintendo DS. A three-dimensional role-playing game, Sonic and his friends must solve the mystery as to why Knuckles and the Chaos Emeralds have gone missing. Along the way, Sonic meets an echidna from an alternate dimension named Shade, and she wants to prevent her Nocturnus tribe from invading Sonic's dimension.
Have survived many battles against Eggman. But now, a new threat has emerged. Save the universe, Dark.
In 2009, Sonic and the Black Knight was released on the Nintendo Wii. A three-dimensional action platforming game, Sonic must run to stop an evil King Arthur, known as the Black Knight, and restore peace to the kingdom. While not technically a role-playing game, as Sonic progresses, he unlocks skills to assist him in his adventure. In 2010, Sonic Colors was released on the Nintendo DS and Nintendo Wii. An Ultimate version would also be released in 2021 on the Microsoft Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, Sony PlayStation 4, and PC. A three-dimensional third-person action-adventure game with occasional two-dimensional side-scroller platforming, Eggman had opened a galactic amusement park. When Sonic and Tails investigated, they found that Eggman had captured creatures known as Wisps. The Wisps had special abilities that could power up individuals that were in contact with them. Also in 2010, Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 1 was released on the Microsoft Xbox 360, Nintendo Wii, Sony PlayStation 3, and then later on mobile and PC. A two-dimensional side-scroller platforming game, it was created to continue the storyline from Sonic and Knuckles. However, that was retconned with the release of Sonic Mania. While the game featured abilities established in Sonic & Knuckles, the stages were selectable via a world map, and the extra stages were similar to those of the original Sonic the Hedgehog on the Sega Genesis. Also in 2010, Sonic and Sega All-Star Racing was released on the Microsoft Xbox 360, Nintendo DS, Nintendo Wii, Sony PlayStation 3, PC, and later on iOS and mobile devices. However, since not technically part of the main Sonic franchise, this racing series will not be covered beyond this entry. Here is a list of other release games in this series. In 2011, Sonic Generations was released on the Microsoft Xbox 360, Nintendo 3DS, Sony PlayStation 3, and PC. A three-dimensional third-person action-adventure game with occasional two-dimensional side-scroller platforming, Sonic and Tails must team up with their classic counterparts to free their friends from a time portal. Each zone consists of two acts, one in the modern form and the other in the classic form. Once all of the Chaos Emeralds are collected, both Sonics obtain their super forms. In 2012, Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 2 was released on the Microsoft Xbox 360, Sony PlayStation 3, PC, and then later on mobile. A continuation of Episode 1 that now includes Tails, players who had both episodes could unlock a story mode featuring Metal Sonic after the events of Sonic CD. This time, the special stages were similar to those from Sonic the Hedgehog 2 on the Sega Genesis. In 2013, Sonic Lost World was released on Nintendo 3DS, Nintendo Wii U, and then later on PC.
A three-dimensional third-person action-adventure game with occasional two-dimensional side-scroller platforming, Sonic, Tails, and Eggman must team up to stop the Deadly Six from attaining the power of the Lost X. The game's three-dimensional level design had been compared to that of Super Mario Galaxy series. However, there are added abilities from Sonic Colors, parkour, and alternating paths. In 2014, Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric was released on the Nintendo Wii U. A three-dimensional third-person action-adventure game, Sonic and friends must battle Metal Sonic, Eggman, and Lyric, the last ancient. Lyric was originally imprisoned 1,000 years prior for attempting to gather the Chaos Crystals to take over the world. The game introduced a multi-purpose tool known as the Enter Beam that enabled each character to perform various actions.
What the heck are those things?
We fought some of them before.
Us? You know how much I like punching things.
Also in 2014, Sonic Boom Shattered Crystal was released on the Nintendo 3DS. A primarily two-dimensional side-scroller platforming game, Lyric had brainwashed Shadow to stop Sonic and his team from preventing him from achieving world domination. The game also introduced Styx the Badger to the team, a character established in the Sonic Boom animated series.
In 2016, Sonic Boom Fire and Ice was released on the Nintendo 3DS. The final chapter in the Sonic Boom trilogy, Eggman had found a rare element known as ragnium that had been known to cause environmental damage when utilized. In this primarily two-dimensional side-scroller platforming game, Sonic and friends have to stop Eggman from powering up his robots using this rare element.
Tails? What's going on?
In 2017, Sonic Mania was released on the Microsoft Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, Sony PlayStation 4, and PC. A Plus version would then be released in 2018 on the same platforms. A two-dimensional side-scroller platforming game, the storyline continued after Sonic & Knuckles. Back on Angel Island, Eggman's Egg Robos find the Phantom Ruby, powering themselves up into the hard-boiled heavies. Players could choose to utilize Sonic, Tails, or Knuckles in the original version, but could also use Ray, the Flying Squirrel, or Mighty the Armadillo in the Plus version. Also in 2017, Sonic Forces was released on the Microsoft Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, Sony PlayStation 4, and PC. A three-dimensional third-person action-adventure game with two-dimensional side-scroller platforming, Eggman teamed up with a new villain named Infinite to capture Sonic. Infinite was transformed by the Phantom Ruby from Sonic Mania just like the hard-boiled heavies. Without Sonic protecting the planet, Eggman had taken over 99%. This led to classic Sonic reappearing to assist the Resistance in freeing modern Sonic and introducing a player-created character. In 2022, Sonic Origins was released on the Microsoft Xbox One, Microsoft Xbox Series X and S, Nintendo Switch, Sony PlayStation 4, Sony PlayStation 5, and PC. The game was a high-definition remaster of the 16-bit two-dimensional side-scrolling platformers Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Sonic the Hedgehog 3, and Knuckles, and Sonic CD. Players could choose to experience the original versions and the updated version of each game. The updated versions feature the removal of player lives and added character select, game mechanics from Sonic Mania, additional game modes, and museum content unlocks. Also in 2022, Sonic Frontiers was released on the Microsoft Xbox One, Microsoft Xbox Series X and S, Nintendo Switch, Sony PlayStation 4, Sony PlayStation 5, and PC. A three-dimensional third-person open-world action-adventure game, Sonic must traverse a world compared to that in scope of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. As always, Eggman has discovered some MacGuffin that will help him take over the world, and Sonic is the only one that can stop him.
Throughout Sonic's history, Sonic and friends had appeared in dozens of crossover and spin-off games, from Knights, Billy Hatcher, Samba de Amigo, Super Monkey Ball, and even the Olympus with Super Mario and his friends, to Sonic Spinball, Sonic Superstar Tennis, Sonic the Fighters, Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, Tails Adventure, and there's just too many games to list. Thus, in this video's description is an URL for a list on Wikipedia. Sonic the Hedgehog has been an icon in popular culture for over 30 years with no sign of slowing down. With the establishment of now classic characters and regular product releases, there is still plenty of room for growth in this franchise, first established in 1991. Let us hope that Sonic the Hedgehog will continue to live on forever. If you have any comments or questions, please post them. Also remember to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.
I am Anthony from HNE, and today we're going to look at the history of Transformers video games. Begun by toy designers looking for the next big thing, Hasbro ended up partnering with the Japanese toy company Takara. Using Takara's toy designs, Hasbro then asked Marvel Comics to create character biographies and story elements that would help sell the imported toys to American children. Almost as soon as the Transformers hit the airwaves in 1984, there was the first Transformers video game. In 1985, the Commodore 64 and Sinclair Spectrum saw the first Transformers video game named The Transformers. Playing a Generation 1 Autobot, the goal was to collect pieces of an Energon Cube while fighting the Decepticons. In 1986, the Commodore received the Transformers Battle to Save the Earth. This was a base defense game that featured a deployment mechanic that included the first-person shooting of enemy hordes. In 1986 and in 1987, the Famicom saw two Japanese exclusives in Transformers Mystery of Convoy and Transformers The Headmasters. Mystery of Convoy focuses on Ultra Magnus battling Decepticons. Its sequel, The Headmasters, features a number of Autobots who travel planet to free planets being controlled by the Decepticons. Skipping nearly a decade, we get to 1997 and the Beast Wars Transformers video game on PlayStation and the PC in 1998. As a third-person shooter, players choose various Maximals and Predacon characters to fight against the alien group, the Skrillex. In 1999, Transformers Beast Wars Transmetals released on the PlayStation and Nintendo 64. A fighting game, the Maximals and Predacons fight each other, much like other games in the genre. However, the consoles do not share the same story elements. In 2003, the Transformers Call of the Future returns to Generation 1, but as a Japanese PlayStation 2 exclusive. Choosing to be either an Autobot or Decepticon, this squad-based game has both combat and army building. In 2004, Transformers was released on the PlayStation 2 and focuses on the Transformers Armada animated series. The United Kingdom version released with a special director's cut featuring a making of video. In 2007, Transformers the Game was a multiplayer release based upon the first live-action Transformers movie. This third-person shooter featured missions involving characters and storyline from each faction.
Now you will pay for your crimes on Cybertron.
In 2009, Transformers Revenge of the Fallen was a multi-platform shooter released based upon the second live-action Transformers movie. Featuring separate Autobot and Decepticon campaigns, the previous generation versions did not include online play, a first for a Transformers video game.
Dare challenge me? I am a prime! You abandoned that name when you slaughtered your brother.
In 2010, Transformers War for Cybertron was released on the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and PC, with companion games on the Nintendo DS and Wii. With an original story, the main games were third-person shooters featuring a limited number of Autobots and Decepticons. There was also online play. The companion game on the Nintendo Wii, known as Transformers War for Cybertron, Cybertron Adventures, had a linear storyline with different playable characters, each with their own mission levels. In 2011, Transformers Dark of the Moon was a multiplayer shooter released as a prequel to the third live-action Transformers movie. On the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, there is only a single campaign mode, similar to the Nintendo Wii's Transformers War for Cybertron, Cybertron Adventures. Despite the change in storytelling, there was an online mode with player ranking similar to some fighting games. The Transformers Dark of the Moon Stealth Force Edition on the Nintendo 3DS and Wii was a prequel to the movie, but transformations were not optional in this linear third-person shooter. In 2012, Transformers Fall of Cybertron was the multiplayer sequel to Transformers War for Cybertron. Also a third-person shooter, the Autobots attempt to escape Cybertron, which leads right up to the start of the Generation 1 storyline. Also in 2012, Transformers Prime the Game was a third-person melee game released on the Nintendo DS, 3DS, Wii, and Wii U. Occurring within the storyline of the second season of the animated series, the Autobots and Decepticons fight over Dark Energon. Containing RPG elements, players were able to upgrade character attributes.
Your destruction is at hand!
In 2014, Transformers Rise of the Dark Spark was a multiplayer partial recap of both the Transformers War and Fall of Cybertron and the film continuities together in chronological order. With up to 40 playable characters depending upon the console, players fight through a linear story with both specific and chosen characters. In 2015, Transformers Devastation returns to the Generation 1 era and features characters, art, and audio from the first two seasons of the 1984 animated series. A multi-platform third-person melee game with RPG elements, the Autobots must stop the Decepticons from attaining an ancient power that could potentially destroy the Earth. In 2020, Transformers Battlegrounds was a multiplayer strategy game based upon the Transformers Cyberverse animated series. As per the usual for the series, the Decepticons are attacking Earth and the Autobots must intervene. The animated series does not show humans, but this game does, as some of its settings are located inside human neighborhoods.
You have fought well, but this is not over. You will not stop us. Here we face our greatest.
Planned for late 2021, Transformers Online is a rumored massively multiplayer online game. There is little clarity on whether it would be an international version of the Chinese exclusive Transformers Online released in 2017 or a wholly original game. The Transformers have been in video games for over 35 years with no signs of slowing down. With the establishment of evergreen character designs and stories being based upon the aligned continuity, there is still plenty of room for growth in the chronology first established in 1984. Let us hope that Transformers will continue to live on forever. If you have any comments or questions, please post them. Also remember to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I am Anthony from HNE, and today we're going to look at the history of Transformers video games. Begun by toy designers looking for the next big thing, Hasbro ended up partnering with the Japanese toy company Takara. Using Takara's toy designs, Hasbro then asked Marvel Comics to create character biographies and story elements that would help sell the imported toys to American children. Beginning with Generation 2, the first handheld video game was released. Due to the quantity of Transformers video games, we will only be focusing on those planned for release in North America. Welcome to the Arcade, Handheld, and Other Games section. This is a list of the video games released via various non-mobile means. Most of these video games are available via the secondary marketplace. In 1993, Transformers Generation 2 was released on Tiger Electronics LCD handheld devices. While the options for movement and other actions were limited, playing Transformers on a handheld made it popular. Re-released in 2020, fans who missed out on the first time had another chance to pick it up. Similar games would be released in 2007, one based on the animated series and the other on the first live-action movie. In 2007, Transformers the Game was a multi-platform release based upon the first live-action Transformers movie. This third-person shooter featured missions involving characters and storylines for each faction. The PlayStation Portable version included a single storyline and multiplayer mode, while the Nintendo DS version had a game for each faction, Autobots and Decepticons.
Will pay for your crimes on Cybertron.
In 2008, Transformers Animated was released on the Nintendo DS. Written and voiced by the cast and crew of the animated series, this game was a puzzle-based platformer where the player controlled a 3-bot Autobot team. In addition to some racing segments, players would be tasked with gathering the pieces of the Allspark.
I'll take it from here, Bulkhead.
In 2009, Transformers Revenge of the Fallen was a multi-platform shooter based upon the second live-action Transformers movie that featured separate Autobot and Decepticon campaigns. The PlayStation Portable version was a top-down arcade shooter without at-will transformation. Just like with Transformers the Game, the Nintendo DS version had a game for each faction, Autobots and Decepticons.
You abandoned that name when you slaughtered your brother.
In 2010, Transformers War for Cybertron was released on the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and PC with companion games on the Nintendo DS and Wii. With an original story, the main games were third-person shooters featuring a limited number of Autobots and Decepticons. There was also online play. Just like with Transformers the Game, the Nintendo DS version had a game for each faction, Autobots and Decepticons. In 2011, Transformers Dark of the Moon was a multi-platform shooter released as a prequel to the third live-action Transformers movie. Just like with Transformers the Game, the Nintendo DS version had a game for each faction, Autobots and Decepticons. The Transformers Dark of the Moon Stealth Force Edition on the Nintendo 3DS and Wii was also a prequel to the movie, but transformations were not optional in this linear third-person shooter. In 2012, Transformers Prime the Game was a third-person melee game released on the Nintendo DS, 3DS, Wii, and Wii U. Occurring within the storyline of the second season of the animated series, the Autobots and Decepticons fight over Dark Energon. Containing RPG elements, players were able to upgrade character attributes.
Your destruction is at hand!
In 2013, Transformers Human Alliance was released in arcades. A rail shooter based upon the live-action movies, this game can be played with up to 2 players. As a full-motion live-action story progresses, players are tasked with shooting targets.
Wait, Sam! Do I really have to deliver the device with this ice girl?
In 2014, Transformers Rise of the Dark Spark was released on the Nintendo 3DS. A strategy role-playing game, this game mixes elements of the movie continuity, aligned continuity, and the story from War for Cybertron. Players take turns moving and attacking in three-dimensional arenas. Also in 2014, Transformers Universe was a free-to-play browser-based, third-person massive online battle arena MOBA game. First revealed at BotCon 2011, the game went through various test phases and genre changes prior to its cancellation. It was meant to be based in an alternate reality from that of the Transformers Prime animated series. In 2016, Transformers Robots in Disguise Autobots Unite was released on Apple TV. Adapted from the Transformers Robots in Disguise mobile game, two players can now partake in the story cooperatively. In 2018, Transformers Shadows Rising was released in arcades. A rail shooter based upon the live-action movies, this game can be played with up to 2 players. As a full-motion live-action story progresses, players are tasked with shooting targets. This game is the direct sequel to Transformers Human Alliance.
Shadows Rising. Players team up with movie stars Optimus Prime, Bumblebee, and Sideswipe to stop Megatron's evil plan. Designed to be easy to join, players...
A Transformers video game that was being developed by the company of Certain Affinity was that it would be a free-to-play online FPS, that it would be available in China and the United States, and again, free-to-play, 3D shooter. It would be possessing the G1/Evergreen likeness, but leaning more towards, and I quote here, the Transformers generation line between 2010 and 2012. We still don't really know what is going to be coming from this game. And if it's free to play, that usually means there's probably going to be loot boxes, there's probably going to be pay to have aesthetic changes. We'll probably have something where you could customize your bot, and you could have certain looks and certain designs and certain colors, and you pay for that. But there'll be some kind of loot crate kind of gotcha system.
Welcome to the Mobile Montage. This is a slideshow of the video games released on mobile devices. Most of these video games are no longer available. The Transformers have been in video games for over 35 years with no sign of slowing down. With the establishment of evergreen character designs and the stories being based in the aligned continuity, there is still plenty of room for growth in the chronology first established in 1984. Let us hope that the Transformers will continue to live on forever. If you have any comments or questions, please post them. Also remember to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Tell me in the comments your thoughts on this video. Did you like what you saw, and how was your experience with it? Thanks for watching, and please remember to like and subscribe.